Alrighty guys, Mortpig here for another video where we discuss all things about life in Australia. So in this one, we've got Sky News reporting on not an attractive destination. Couple films Uluru commits 20 finable offences.
But something else that could have been a very costly mistake is what happened to some tourists at Uluru. They were vlogging their trip for YouTube, taking a lot of photos, posting them all over social media. Then 3 months later,
Okay, so that sounds like they're one of these new age influencers, and they've got probably a YouTube channel going, socials, and that's probably how they're making some money on the side there, or they're just basically taking a gap year and traveling. But also, I guess they're also promoting, um, travel in Australia, for all of us, for tourists in Australia who don't live in the NT, and also for the greater world.
they got an email saying they had committed 20 finable offences by taking photos and videos of Uluru. Here's what they posted to social media.
So 3 months ago, when we were in Uluru, we did a YouTube video, we put a couple of posts up, and we weren't aware that there was actually like a media guideline that you had to.
Yeah, I had no idea of this. I actually have traveled to Uluru, and once I got out on the tours, there was lots of um, they have signs saying you can't take a photo of this particular area. I was with guides, and they would say just 2 meters that way, don't take a photo. A meter that way, you're fine. But if you just rock up, how do you actually know where you can what actual spot you can take a photo or a video? It's pretty crazy.
Abide by. You have to apply for a permit to post anything about Uluru. Fine. We weren't aware about that. They emailed us, so we submitted that permit. We've got an email back today. What's that? 3 months after we went to NT?
Yeah, 3 months later.
And there's like 20 lines of finable offences.
So it sounds like they've got someone who their job is to probably scrub the internet and hand out these fines.
So apparently there's actually a 28-page media policy for Uluru. If you want to do any commercial photography, that's a pass you have to buy. If you want to do any filming, which they were doing for their YouTube channel, that's an extra $250 a day to film. But it wasn't just that they were taking photos and filming. Apparently even them moving a branch on the side of the road to swat away flies was considered culturally insensitive and potentially a finable offence. There were other things in there, like if you're taking a photo of the northwest side of Uluru, you have to use the wide angle lens so you don't zoom in.
Well, that's like I did on our one on my guide. He said you can't take any photos, videos through this whole section. But when I was there was like this whole bunch of Italians rocked up, and they were just taking photos right in front of where it says a no photo sign. Like they just didn't care at all. In my actual tour, there was this sneaky Asian lady, and she heard the spiel, don't take photos here, don't take photos here. And then what she did, she got her little camera, put it right up into her belly, and she was snapping away at this spot where they didn't want you to take photos. So it's almost impossible to police. So why even bother doing it? I would think we want to actually, if you're going to let anyone close to Uluru or any of the areas like Kings Canyon and the like, then just make it a free-for-all and promote the place, or shut the whole thing down that you can't go on it at all, to a point where you can't go as close as they allow you to have that photo. So obviously when you're taking, you might be like 5Ks away and you take a photo of Uluru, that's all you can do. But to go right up to the rock itself, and I was there, 1 minute to the left, can't take a photo. To the right, and I was like, in my mind, What? And who would know? So obviously, if you upload them and you got a bit of a following like this couple, they've got people on the job now to actually do these fines. I actually didn't know on the tour, Uluru precinct itself, because you actually have to pay to get into the precinct of the Uluru, I guess, acreage or farm. It was like, $20 for 3 days or whatever. But once you pass into there, they have their own rules that are different to NT council rules.
On any culturally significant sites? I mean, are they trying to run this as a tourist business, or what is the goal here? Because you're not.
Well, that's it. Is it a tourist business, or is it a sensitive site that no tourists can go in there?
Really making this an attractive destination for people to visit.
When you say cultural sensitivity, what I hear is cha-ching, 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 because that's what this is really all about. Now, if you just go there as a tourist, and I've never been to Uluru, Ayers Rock. I would love to. Never got the chance to climb it because they banned it before I could ever get there. And I just got to wonder why you would go there now. You're kept at a distance. You're told you can't take photographs of numerous sites. That's just as an ordinary person, let alone if you're a commercial photographer. And explaining...
Even if you were a commercial photographer, how the hell would you even be aware that a certain destination has these rules? I have no idea. Unless you're getting employed by the people who run the resorts or the actual tours and have a license to do that, and they want to take maybe some footage for their businesses, they might be aware of it. But like influencers, they're not going to have a clue about this stuff.
The decision, a spokesperson for the local Indigenous organisation said that areas which were culturally sensitive were equivalent to sacred scripture, which means that there are certain areas that for religious reasons you are not allowed to photograph. Where are all the lefties who are always going on about separate?
Well, fair enough. Just say you went to, is it Israel, and where Jesus was buried in the tomb. I don't know what it's like there, how close you can get to it. If you can get to it, can you take a photo of it? In that regards, this is a sacred site to the Indigenous of Australia. But also, I don't think you can have it two ways as well. Like you can, it's very expensive to go out there. Flying out there is not expensive if you get a pretty good deal, but the hotels, they have a lock on all the hotels there. They can charge whatever they want. Granted, it takes a bit to set up the place. There's nothing else out there, but that's it. There's nothing else out there except for people want to experience the beauty of the rock. Where, like I said, 1 meter this way, you can take a photo 1 meter the other. Very hard to police. And when I was there, all these tourists, they weren't even on tours. They were just rocking up in their cars, going for the walk, and they were taking photos everywhere. They would be uploading them to their socials.
Of church and state.
Where are they?
We're a secular society, and yet we've got Indigenous spirituality determining what you can and can't do when you go to visit a rock in the middle of the country.
Well, when I first...
Actually, when on one of the tours, the guide, which funnily he was from Italy, but he knew a lot about Uluru. Obviously, he's been taking their course or whatever to be a guide there. But he tried to explain it that imagine if we all came into his house, then went to his bathroom and took pictures of his toilet. And it's like, or another one he uses, if we went into his bedroom and started taking pictures of his underwear. So that's how he's saying, yeah, of course you wouldn't want to do that. It's weird, it's creepy. And that's how the Aboriginals are taking certain areas of Uluru, if you photo, that's how they feel about it.
heard this story, immediately I started thinking of that ABBA song, Money, 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 because to me, that's all that this is. This is no more to me than a money-making activity. Now, it's interesting because visitor numbers, tourist numbers to Uluru have failed to reach levels higher than pre-pandemic. So they're actually struggling to get tourists to Uluru right now. Why would you want to go to Uluru when you hear this, when you take 1, 2 photos and suddenly, surprise, you get a fine in the mail?
Yeah, it was. I've got to say, it was a bit off-putting. Like, I knew that you couldn't climb Uluru anymore, which I think is a shame. Especially, but you can't actually climb or walk some of the other rock formations out there. Again, you couldn't take pictures in certain areas on some of them. I think it's the Olgas, or they call it Kata something else. But I think opening it up is just going to send more tourists there, and then that can sustain and provide income for the Indigenous throughout Australia and all their communities by a cooperation with them.
Or you pick up a branch, swat away flies, and suddenly you're fined. You wouldn't bother. This does not make it a tourist destination. And in fact, I think it should be a very good tourist destination because it's meant to be one of the Australian icons. But what I find ironic about this, you've got these Aboriginal, corporations. They're saying, no, you need to come and you need to respect our land. You need to respect Uluru. Yet they're not actually showing any respect themselves for the tourists who are coming there to pay their own respects to what is a natural and beautiful icon. And that is just the point. We're talking about nature here. We're talking about sticks. We're talking about a rock formation. We are talking.
It's like, I guess, when you go to the Sistine Chapel in the Vatican, they don't want you to take photos once you're in the Sistine Chapel. Something sacred. But I guess that's very easy policeable. Like, it's a very small room, and there's people, like officers there. And if they see anyone take out the camera or whatever, this was years ago when I went there, they would come up to you and say no. Maybe these days you got to hand in your iPhone or your camera before you go into the Sistine Chapel. But for this, I found it really troubling that I was constantly seeing blatantly tourists taking photos wherever they want, and they wouldn't even have a clue. On one of my walks, she was very vague. Like, it's like, all right here, as you're walking towards the rock formation, you can take photos here, but when we get a little bit closer, you can't. So then I was like walking along, all right, she just said here we could. I took a photo, and then one of the other just group members was like, no, you can't take photos. I said, no, she said up a bit further. She goes, oh, did she? And as we started walking closer and closer, people were starting to take photos. And then the tour guy was like, put your cameras away, yelling at the people in the group, and you're like, oh, hang on. Like, it is just, this must be a new thing that they've really cracked down on.
Think about nature. Money? Where does money come into it, Freya?
And the other funny thing is that tourist destinations around the world will pay influencers to go there to make YouTube videos showing off these destinations to try and get more people to come.
Well, that's it. Like, the world of influencing is a new form of media. That's, I guess, they're just not going to know that there was a media guide. How would they? It's not like they're going to an event and they're official. It's sort of off the cuff, in that grey area of you're potentially making money, but how does anyone know? You say you're an influencer. Are they making money? Are they just trying to start out? Are they just like the regular tourist, or are they just a bit more glorified tourist? Like, how do you classify them? I guess once they get a following and they're easily searchable, and whoever's looking at this can see that, oh yeah, these guys are making, getting lots of views on their content. I see they've taken photos of these sacred sites. Shoot them this. These are all the fines.
I mean, places like Saudi Arabia that are trying to invent whole tourism industries, they're paying big money to influencers to come and film places. Meanwhile, here in Australia, we are fining people for showing off some of our best national treasures. What is the logic?
Ayers Rock Resort, where you can go and stay when you visit Uluru, on their website they offer advice to people who are going there, and they talk about if you're going to do commercial photography, you'll need to purchase a permit. And on their website they explain, while this may seem restrictive, do you think, these measures are put in place to A, protect the fragile natural environment. I presume the money is used to update, local landscaping things and so on, and to respect the cultural values of the local Indigenous people.
Right, when I booked my hotel stay, I never saw that.
How does purchasing a permit to take a photograph respect the natural or the cultural values? And are cultural values for sale? That's what is implied.
Exactly.
We have our cultural values, but they can be bought.
But the thing is as well, it should be no group in Australia that should be given these sorts of exclusive rights above every other.
Well, apparently there's Ayers Rock Resort. There's 4 hotels, I believe, in there, and the one company owns them all. So it's a bit of a monopoly that's been arranged, I guess, somewhere with the Indigenous people who are controlling that land. So there you go.
Other person, because in the end, I mean, it goes back to what we talk about a lot. We are all Australians. We are all one. There is not one group in society. And don't forget, we tried to put an end.
But not that. It's not just Aussies. There's going to be tourists who come into Australia who coming in to see Sydney, coming in to see, go down to Victoria, go into the outback. They're going to do that, and that's gonna. They're just not. They're going to want to appreciate seeing the rock formations and get to know the history of Australia. But it's also going to be a bit confusing, and also it's actually really impossible to police the everyday tourists, or even like maybe a famous influencer from England comes in and would have no idea about the permits. And even if they're gone back to UK, you're going to shoot them an email, they're not going to pay that fine.
Into this sort of division by the colour of our skin when we all voted, the majority of us, no to the voice referendum. So that should have been a clear signal. But again, it just goes back to this old woke nonsense that's being peddled by certain groups of society. And again, good luck, because you're not going to get a lot of tourists coming to Uluru if that's your motto in life. Now,
that's it, isn't it? Like, yeah, it goes too far one way. Too much policing. And it's gonna backfire and turn people off promoting the place. All right, guys, post what you think in the comments. There's another one for you, Life in Australia.